Hi everyone and welcome to the Allotment ALF. In this video, I'm gonna briefly explain to you what is Allotment ALF and what kind of transactions you can actually do here. So first of all, you will see the Allotment ALF button on this menu. If you click on it, you will notice that once you connect your wallet, a lot of different numbers pops up. So let's go through each of the number. What is supply balance? Supply balance represents the amount of money that you deposited into the protocol right now. So as you can see, we deposited $4,652, and if you hover over the supply balance, you will see it explained in detail. Some Solanas, some USDC, and a bit of USDT as well. Now the borrow balance is how much you money borrowed from the protocol. So if you also hover onto the borrow balances, you will see that we have two debt position, one of Solanas for $170 and $1,000 worth of USDC, also borrowed from the capital. Next up, you will see this loan to value number. This number represents how much of your borrowing limit you already used. So as you can see, this number right here represents your maximum borrowing limit based on your deposit. So from our deposit of $4,600, our maximum borrowing limit is $1,860. So we already borrowed 62.9% of our maximum borrowing limit. This number is important to mention because if this number is high, and what I mean by high is saying it's 80% and above, you are running a risk of your position being liquidated because you are coming closer and closer to your maximum borrowing limit. So to avoid any potential losses, the protocol might liquidate your position. But more about liquidations you can find in the liquidation zone of the documentation. So what does this net API mean? This number represents your actual API if it takes into consideration all of your deposits and all of your borrowings. If you have this net API at a negative number, in this case we have minus 3%, this simply means that we are paying more from our interests and borrowed money than we're actually earning. So in reality, we're actually losing 3% a year on the current conditions because our interest rates of the debt and borrowed capital is higher than our deposit interest rates that we are earning. But if you only supply the liquidity and you do not borrow capital, then this number will be positive. So this is a bit of a better representation and visually represented API that you are actually earning right now. So once again, as I just mentioned, if it's in a negative zone, this means that you are paying more interest for your borrowed capital than you're actually earning, which is of course makes sense. And you may ask why this number and this number is changing slightly. It's because it always changes based on your earned interests and borrowed interest as well. So this is why this number is sometimes changing. Now if you scroll a bit of a lower, you will see two boxes. the supply markets and borrow markets, and right here you can find all of the assets that are available for supplying and for borrowing. So if you want to supply liquidity to the protocol and earn API, you can simply do that by visiting me there, and you will see, instead of change button, you will see deposit. You can click on it and you can deposit your assets into the protocol, and you will start earning an API on top of your deposits. So right here you will see the pool name. We have Solana, USDC, USDT, and MSOL at the moment. In the future, this range of assets will expand, of course. Then you have the API, which is the current API that you are earning, and this API number is dynamic and is always changing based off the utilization rate of this pool. Then you see your deposits, and your deposits represent how much of this asset you deposited. So as you can see in this example, we have 50 Solanas, we have $2,000 and $950 of USDT. Then you have the borrow markets, and which is the same thing, the same pools, but for borrowing. So you are seeing the APR, and this is how much you are paying of the interest rates to borrow some capital. Then next to here, you will see your depth, which is how much you borrowed. So in this case, we have a borrow position of 5 Solanas and 1,000 USDC in borrowed capital as well. And then you have these two buttons change. If you want to borrow something, you will see the button borrow. If you already have a borrowed position, you will see the button change. If you click on it, you are able to borrow more based on your maximum borrowing limit, or you can repay your debt by simply clicking repay and entering the amount of your debt you want to repay. If you click on this mini arrow right here, you can see the utilization rate of this pool. The utilization rate is simply a percentage of how much of the deposited capital is borrowed. So if this rate percentage is lower, as you can see right now, it's only 10%. This means that only 10% of capital is borrowed. Then the deposit API will be lower, simply because there is enough money to be borrowed. But the higher the utilization rate, the higher is deposit API as well, because that means that there are less available capital to borrow, and in order to incentivize users to deposit more, the API for deposits are increased as well. And this formula is fully dynamic and is changing from time to time based on the people deposits and borrowings. So that's pretty much what is inside the allotment ALF. You can also click on the profile and you will see your profile right here. Let me quickly walk you through what is this profile and what kind of things you can see, but pretty much you are able to see the same thing in just a simple and nice user interface. So the allotment value is how much you money have deposited in general. Then you have the leverage value, which is how much money you used in a leveraged yield farming provision. This is the feature of Alfprotocol, which is at the moment is not enabled, but by the time you are watching this, it's most likely is enabled. So if you have any leveraged positions, you will see that right here. Then you see this net API, which is also available under the allotment ALF. You see your total debt value, which simply shows how much you borrowed in total. Then you see your borrowing limit, and the borrowing limit which is the maximum borrowing limit for you. So in this case it's $1.8 100,000. So this is how much you can borrow at most based on your deposits of this number. And then you have these two boxes of earned interest and accumulated borrowing interest, which is also a very convenient way to see how much you already earned. So at the moment it shows zeros because the number is too small to show. If you hover over it, you will see the exact number that you just earned in interest because you supplied the liquidity. And right here is the accumulated borrowing interest, which also means simply that you have to pay for your debt. So this amount of money that you will see right here is what you own to the protocol and liquidity providers once you are willing to repay your position. And if you scroll a bit lower, you will also see your supplied positions in a simple window. Solana's API, amount, and your earned interest. And if you move to borrow, you will see your borrowed information as well, which is also the pool name, the APR you are paying, the amount of debt that you have, and the utilization rate of the pool, and the overall liquidity of the pool as well. So that's the profile, and that's the allotment ALF. So hopefully the video is clear. Thank you guys for watching, and let's move on to the next videos.